Welcome to Standout Stars Summit on Kindness and Gratitude Summit and Gift Giveaway. I'm Brenda Pierce, the guest host here, and I'm bringing you some of the amazing co-contributors to the Secret Child Life After Loss book. And today we are featuring Jonathon Aslay, who is a relationship expert and coach and also a bereaved parent of his son Connor. So welcome to the summit, Jonathon.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very grateful to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here. And I know you have a very busy schedule, so thank you for making time to be with us today. And,
who doesn't have a busy schedule? Come on.
I know. Exactly. Well, it's really wonderful that we are able to be here together today, but it's unfortunately that you had to join the club that nobody wants to join. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Sure. So, well, it's coming up. I mean, as the time we're recording this, we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary that my 19-year-old son passed away. That's a picture of him there. That's a picture of him there. His name is Connor. Actually, that's a picture of him there with his brother and I. And I think back to when both my boys were born. I was kind of a worrywart kind of parent. Worrywart. I can't even say the word. You know what I mean? Worrywart.
Yeah,
worrywart. And for some reason, it doesn't flow off my tongue. I was one of those parents that always were worried, would they drown in the pool? Would they get kidnapped? Would something happen? Will they have a good life? I mean, I was in a and I don't mean a constant state. I was about to say constant state, but certainly top of mind for me. And I suspect that was because my mother was that way. She was kind of a war. God, I can't say it, but everyone gets what I'm talking about. So, and certainly as a parent, our fear, for most parents, I can't speak for all, but I would say most parents have a fear that something could happen to one or all of their children, kind of thing. So I lived my life a little bit on that kind of feels like quicksand, if you will. And of course, I mean, and I'd say a lot of parents feel that way. And again, I'm not talking about it as an exaggeration. I'm just saying it's just, I feel innate. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then boom, it happened. And then you see on the news, kidnappings, you see on the news, children dying, and you hear all the stories, whether it's suicide or drug overdose or car accident or, God forbid, a shooting type of thing. You hear all this and you think, well, it's not going to happen to my child. Mm-hmm. And then it happens to you and to your child. And even within my circle of friends, my extended circle, I don't think any of them had ever experienced the loss of a child. So with our child, it wasn't just, the loss of Connor for his mother and I and his brother and our family. It was like my entire circle lost a child in that moment. And I share this because that's what's been said to me frequently, because there was a connection with all, none of us have been connected. We've all had, that we've had folks who our parents have passed away, or someone our own age, or someone when we're growing up. But it's so different, I feel, when a child passes away. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting. I did a post on Facebook, just on a separate note. I'd like to share it with everyone because it's kind of an interest, a wife who loses a husband is called a widow. A husband who loses a wife is called a widower. A child who loses his parents is called an orphan. There's no word for a parent who loses a child. That's how awful the loss is. And it's fascinating to me that exists, that there is no terminology for this. So when, much like most everybody, I suspect I was in a state of shock. I was in a state of disbelief. And yet at the same time, I accepted it. My ex-wife and I accepted it fairly quickly. And I can't say why that happened. I think on some level, I might have intuitively known that his journey here might be a short-lived one. I have this feeling that my subconscious, if you will, or that soul part of me knew his journey here was going to be short-lived. So I don't want to say it was a surprise because his behavior wasn't like something so radical that would lead me to believe that. There were maybe just a couple clues that it might happen, but it wasn't like so, like a glaring sign, because certainly if it was a glaring sign, I might have tried to avoid it. But at the same time, we accepted it rather quickly. And it's because I made a conscious choice. I remember when I was giving his eulogy, and I stopped in the middle of it, sharing the stories about him. I stopped in the middle and I looked at all of his friends and loved ones and our family. And I said, look, we have a choice. We can grieve through suffering, or we can grieve with love. So I'm making this conscious choice today, and I invite all of us, this is what I said in the speech. I said, I invite us all to choose love, because I know he would not want us to suffer one day of our lives. That would never be his wish. So even if we have to do it from a place of honoring him, let's choose to grieve with love. And grieving with love is, at least in my vantage point, is remembering all the good, really just leaning into remembering all the good, and recognizing that additionally, that he's in a place of loving arms. And however anyone views that from their spirituality perspective, for me, I just feel like the transition when we pass away is just to a state of love. That's how I view it. And most importantly, he would want us to excel in our lives. So in honoring him, that's how I approach this. And I took a very long time to answer your question, but I felt like there was something to be said, and I wanted to say that for everyone to hear.
No, that's beautifully said. And that's the premise behind the book as well, is that our children never decided to leave to hurt us. It's just not that way with them. The piece also about you being a helicopter parent and always having this overwhelming sense of concern that something could happen. I wonder if that was kind of a premonition, so to speak, that a foreboding that, that something would happen, and it was like you were being prepared for it.
Well, no, because I would have been way more effing conscious as a parent. I would say the first 5 years of both my boys' life, I was so focused on being the provider protector that I wasn't that present of a parent. And then I went through a divorce right at the time they were like 5 and 8. And I was, and it was a tiny bit contentious. And I was going through a lot of emotional chaos in my life, including loss of my $250,000 a year job. So imagine you just file for divorce and a month later you lose your job. Wow. And so I was in absolute chaos for another 5 years. So it wasn't till Connor was probably 11 and Colin was 14 that I actually began parenting. And what I mean by being present as a parent, and that was because I had to reparent myself during those years. Yeah. And what I mean is I went down the pit of despair and I began a reparenting, if you will, during that period of time. So if I had a premonition, damn, I wish I would have paid more attention to it. It was just, I think that was it was really a bleed over from my mother's, worrying, and I just adopted that.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And as a parent, yes, we do have to learn to parent ourselves before we can become the parents that we want to be. And we do carry a lot of stuff. Like life happens on the way to living, right?
Yeah. So what was interesting was I was reading A Course in Miracles about 5 months before he passed away. And we got to the chapter or the section of the book of about death. In fact, there's a lot of conversation in the Course in Miracles about death. And A Course in Miracles simply means a miracle is just shifting from a state to love. I mean, anytime we can shift to a state of love, that's a miracle. That's kind of the way that's my interpretation of the Course in Miracles. And when we got to the section of death, I mean, we really studied, and I did it every day for an hour a day with a study group. I felt like it also prepared me for this. So there was this, I got the benefit of being a little pre-prepared in that sense versus the helicopter parent sense.
Right. Well, and that maybe was not circumstance that you were going through that at that time. I believe that the divine prepares us and does, on a very subtle level for what's next in our life. And, and as you are a father, you have a whole different perspective than, a lot of women do. And so that's why I'm so happy that you're part of the Secret Child Life After Loss, and that you were so eloquent in your expression of let's grieve with love. And when we move into love, then we open the door to kindness and gratitude, as well as overriding emotions that can help us through the grief journey, because it is a journey. It's never over.
Well, and I'm incredibly sympathetic to my ex-wife, because I suspect, and I can't say this, I can only envision it, is a mother's bond with a child is more unique. I don't like I was about to say more unique, and I don't like using the term more. I mean, I just, it's certainly unique. In particular, because she had a 9-month bond with him before I ever got to meet him, and there was breastfeeding involved. So, I recognize that her pain is possibly, if we quantify it, greater. Again, I'm not suggesting pain has these, levels. I mean, pain it hurts no matter what.
Yeah.
And what I'm grateful for is, and now, even though we are no longer in relationship, when we get to, and by the way, Connor's birthday is in a few days, and we as a family are getting together to celebrate his birthday. In fact, we've got a little surprise this year. We each are purchasing a gift that we think he would have purchased for us.
Oh.
So, and if you knew his personality, and he's one of these, he beat to a different drummer type of personalities. The goal was, to buy a gift that we think he would give us, and then we each, like do a grab bag kind of gift thing. This was my idea. But I share this with you is that when she and I speak, there are times where we get together on the phone and we do a 2-hour, we go from happy to sad to happy, sad conversation, sharing stories. And there are plenty of times throughout the any given week or month where we text a picture that we saw that reminded us or something. So even though we are no longer mated together, we have this unique common bond, and we chose to join together in family for this bond, which sadly I know a lot of parents don't do. Not whether they lost a child or not. And I didn't mean to laugh with that, but I'm just saying, and yet with this, it's actually strengthened our relationship, and we treat each other as family as such. So,
which is a beautiful thing, because yes, death of a child can oftentimes drive a huge wedge between married couples on its own from the stress factors, and the stats support that, but you already had that barrier removed. So all you can do is can join together and celebrate.
Well, thankfully, I have the benefit of the last decade or so of immersing myself in personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. So when Connor passed away, it ignited my desire to even be of greater service to humanity. With the and literally 2 months after he passed away, it was the catalyst for me writing my second book, which is if I can show everyone, I know it's backwards here, but it's called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. And I published it within 9 months of his passing, and it hit Amazon #1 in the first 10 hours. I was very grateful for that. And why I'm sharing this is because, coming back to what I said before about a miracle is a shift to love, is as horrific as it is to lose a child, and it is, love is the vaccination to an emotional chaotic experience. And so I believe the more we shore up our individual love for one ourselves, and let me be clear, because some people misinterpret the word self-love. I simply mean self-care, self-reliance, self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, these self-words of individual empowerment, recognizing that we never ever reach full enlightenment until probably 7 seconds before our passing. That's when I feel like that's okay, we're going to get it all the last 7 seconds and it's going to be boom. And then we go off to a different journey. That's my belief system. It's a journey. And so I've adopted this belief, and one of the fundamental principles within this belief is kindness and gratitude. Like even the first chapter of my book, it says, speak your truth, do it with kindness. Because I've observed that the more I'm in a state of loving myself and everyone else, which that represents the kindness, loving myself and everyone else in a sense of gratitude, I believe it prepares us for even the worst thing that can happen. And I mean, I'm sure there might, some people might view even more horrific things than the loss of a child, and I can certainly envision that. As a parent, it doesn't feel like there's anything worse. And yet I've adopted a kinder, gentler, a grateful approach to life because of this experience.
That's wonderful information, because if your well is dry, how can you support somebody else when you're going through the really tough stuff? So filling your well of self-love and kindness and self-gratitude, and and I think that you're a great representation of that, Jonathon. Yes, I really respect you. And this series is airing over Father's Day weekend. So happy Father's Day to you and Connor and your other son. And I really wanted to put a shout out too, because I remember Mother's Day, and you put such a beautiful post out in gratitude to your ex-wife. And that was beautiful.
Thank you. I probably, it's been for the last 5, 6, 7 years. It was actually my most significant relationship after my divorce that helped me connect more with my heart and to a sense of gratitude. And she was the one who encouraged me to really honor, my ex-wife. And so I began a practice of every Mother's Day publicly sharing something along with pictures of the children. Most importantly, my gratitude in particular for the heavy lifting she did, especially when I was in such dysfunctionality. And certainly now that we've lost a child, I acknowledge that as well. And the reason why I do it publicly, it's not to garner, some sense of, oh my God, look at how great Jonathon is kind of thing compared to most men. I do it to model what I think we can all do for each other. And whether it's the ex-spouse, and I think every parent and every ex-spouse, if we actually can honor those people in our lives instead of oftentimes dishonoring or devaluing them because they're no longer part of your, family structure per se, at least from the legal sense, what a kinder, gentler place this will be. So my hope is that other men do the same. And my hope is women do it for their ex-husbands as well, is to honor those people in our lives, because sadly, there is just so much, disrespect and de-honor or devaluing people. And believe me, and let me be clear for everyone watching, I stick my foot in my mouth at least a couple times a day. I can be judgmental, I can be resentful, I can feel guilt, I can feel shame, I can feel all of these, and I can do bonehead things. Okay, so let me be clear on that. And yet at the same time, I do choose to at least always improve if I can, at least if I'm aware of it, and then do something about it. So that's kind of how I live my life, kind of like by the book, The Four Agreements.
Right. That's wonderful information. And it's so true. The thing is, though, that person was special in your life at that time. And you can never negate the fact that there was either a legal bond or family or whatever connections there are. So it is true, everybody that comes into our life is going to touch our life in such a way that if we open our mind to learning something from the experience, then it really was okay.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm because I'm a coach for women, and so I'm a dating and relationship coach for women. I recognize, and I've got the professional, I was going to say occupational hazard sometimes, of I get the opportunity to hear what women experience, and sadly, we genders don't really understand each other. We really don't. Women don't understand men. Men don't really understand women. And when I really sat with and said, can I curse?
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, when I really sat and said, fuck, she really did the heavy lifting. And believe me, I have a sense of shame around that too. It's important to acknowledge that. It's so important to acknowledge how much mothers really do a significant, and by the way, men do their heavy lifting in their own way, especially if they are the provider protector types of dynamic. But there's a lot of heavy lifting need to be done to raise one child, let alone many children, in a world that we no longer operate from a tribe-based community of support. Yeah. And so it's progressively harder to do this. And so when there's loss, I believe there needs to be some, well, not needs to be, I don't like that terminology. I just would love to see more encouragement of, and by the way, we got so much love. So let me just be clear. We continually get so much love from people that thankfully that love, that kindness, that generosity has helped us be afloat during this process, emotionally speaking.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's incredible, the support that can be out there. The tribe shows up when you need it the most, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So writing the chapter for our book, though, I'd love for you to say what was that process like for you? Did you, just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So really all I did was take the eulogy that I'd already written and just and I'd already written this book, which is, literally, the impetus of this book was, for me, it was quite easy because I'd already done the heavy lifting before you reached out to me and asked me to do this. So I'd already contemplated it in my book, and I'd already took the eulogy, and that was like, from then on, I tweaked it, then sent it to my ghost writer, my writer, who cleans things up for me, because I sometimes can vomit words, and she puts it all into music. So I'll be candid with you. Yeah, so the process was actually easy for me. And because I'd actually, unlike a lot of people, I suspect, and I can't speak for the others who contributed to the book, already did a ton of processing way beforehand.
Yeah.
So in my particular case, I think by the time you'd originally reached out, we were probably 2 years into his loss. Now we're 4 years. So it wasn't as fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say this, it's interesting. When he first passed away, my umbilical cord to him was much shorter, if you will. And it was as each, so in a way, I didn't feel the loss. I felt the loss in a different way, versus now the umbilical cord between us feels so much further apart. Yeah. So it has a different energy of loss associated to it. I don't know if I made sense.
No, that's perfect sense.
Pressure in my mind, the day after he passed away, and as painful as it was, this is a different type of pain because all this time has passed. And then it's like, and then you just sit there and go, fuck, it's been 4 years. And then you have a different emotional panic attack that happens, or at least for me anyway.
Yeah, no. And interestingly enough, you being a male, talking about the umbilical cord between you both, that cord, it's true. As time goes on, it just seems like it makes it's such a deceptor as to the loss, right? Like, it's like all of a sudden it catches you and it holds you in that moment where you have that realization. So your chapter,
usually I'm like doing nothing, and then bam, like I'm looking at his pictures, it doesn't, but I'll do something, I'll hear a song, I'll like, oh, and it brings me right back. Yeah,
it does. It does. So the journey of grief is non-ending. We work through it. We never get over it. We can't run away from it. It is what it is. But Connor was a special gift in your life, and thankfully you were able to be a part of our family between the pages of The Secret Child: Life After Loss, sharing the story of Connor and being so candid about the power of love, grieving with love. And that in itself is a beautiful legacy to Connor, that will transcend the readers into the realization that you can choose pain and you can choose the difficult route, but when you settle into love, it really smooths out the bumps, and it gives you a greater connection and availability to be able to be compassionate with others, as well as compassionate with yourself, which is the greatest gift you can give. Jonathon, I just want to share that for our viewers, that we have created a special family gift page, and it's the Secret Child bookseries.com/WOK. And so go there and avail yourself to some amazing inspiration from our contributors. And Jonathon, I want to thank you for being part of the book and our family. Moving forward, we're indelibly together as united. And for the Standout Stars Week of Kindness and Gratitude Summit and Gift Giveaway, this is Brenda Pierce signing off. See you next time.